Tonight, our speaker is, so I'm Jim Walszewski. I'm one of the board members for the CSA group, our Cleveland chapter. And tonight, Ashley McGlone's going to be speaking to us about building a personal brand. I saw Ashley give this presentation last year at the Information Security Summit and really got a lot out of it personally and thought that it would be a great topic to share with our organization here. So with that said, Ashley, go ahead. I'll kick it over to you if you want to introduce yourself and then just go right into it.
Sure. Thanks, Jim.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll share my deck here. And I'll start out with a couple questions and a story before I introduce myself here. So think about this. This is part of the question we want to try to address tonight. You think about a prospective employer. The the funny thing is about the job market. I remember I was at the ISSA in Columbus probably 5 years ago, and Brian Krebs was saying there's like 5 million cybersecurity job openings, and there's going to be all this job security, and it's still a crazy market for jobs, but it's competitive. So when you're out there and hanging out your shingle, how do you differentiate yourself from all those other people online who are applying for those jobs? Particularly, we were just talking about Microsoft, right? Some of these big companies, if you want to break in, how do you do that? And so when somebody searches for you online, what will they find? Is it going to open a door for you? Will it build your reputation in advance? And will it make the interview go quite smoothly, even to make the interview almost an afterthought? And so this is part of what we're going to talk about with building your personal brand today. And I'm just going to share my story. As we were just saying, I used to work for Microsoft, and I was actually, for my present job, I was going to week one of new hire in the Bay Area, and I'm in the lobby of a hotel. I've never been there before, and somebody walks up to me randomly and says, "Are you Ashley McGlone?" And I said, "Yeah." They said, "Well, I've watched all your PowerShell videos, and now I'm a new employee at Microsoft." It's like, well, I just left Microsoft, but it was just this random thing. And then in my interview for my current position, I get to the tech panel. There's about 6 or 7 interviews to my current position. The second one was the tech panel with 3 senior engineers, and they're supposed to put the screws to you and make you cry and say uncle, and typically how those things go. And I've been on both sides of that. And it actually was a wonderful conversation between fellow engineers. And turns out one of the guys who was interviewing me had been following my blog on Microsoft for 3 or 4 years, and he was a big fan. And I just saw him again the other day. This was 8 years ago. And he said, yeah, I was really intimidated to be interviewing you. I mean, you're coming from Microsoft and you've got all this brand going on. And I thought, it's just me. Nothing to be afraid of. I was at I was on a gig for Microsoft at the state of Washington in Tacoma, Washington. I'm sitting at breakfast one morning, and these 2 guys across the hotel lobby just keep kind of glancing back and forth at me while I'm eating my breakfast. Same story. I walk over to these guys, say, "Hey guys, I just couldn't help but notice you kept staring at me." They're like, "Are you Ashley McGlone?" I was like, "Yeah." I said, "Well, we're Microsoft consultants, and we've watched all your PowerShell training videos." And I tell people, I'm not famous at all. It's just there's a handful of people online who've seen my work. But it's a fun story to tell. But you talk about some of the things we talk about at work, at your family reunion, people look at you like you've got 2 heads, right? But so there's just a handful of people that I've been able to influence out there. At Microsoft, I had a blog on TechNet for 7 years before they killed that. I had a bunch of videos on the Microsoft Virtual Academy before they killed that. And I got to speak at a lot of events. And I've done, basically we called it online, on stage, on camera. So blogging, conference speaking, video work, And it's been an amazing ride for my career. And part of that is due to the fact that, yes, I worked for Microsoft at some point in my career, but um, there are some things that you can actually do for yourself to build a platform that will open doors for you and give you opportunities regardless of what company that you work for. And that's what we want to talk about a little bit today. So my name is Ashley McGlone. I'm based in Columbus, just south of you all. And I want to talk about how to secure your career with a personal brand, because this is the other side of the coin. Is okay when head cuts are coming down the org chart. This has saved my bacon, having a personal brand and doing a public service, so to speak. Helping a lot of people has built a reputation that has actually saved my bacon as well. So it really helps on multiple levels as far as career security, but also it's just a lot of fun. And so that's what I want to talk about today. I don't want to make it a heavy topic. It's really a lot of fun. And it's a way that you can kind of maverick your role. I did that at Microsoft. I've done that here at Tanium. And I just get to do what I love every day. And so I want to talk about how you can do that a little bit too. So first off, let's talk about what is a personal brand. And there's a lot of school of thought on this. I'm just going to share my story. It doesn't mean it's the only right story. There's a lot of stories out there on how people have done this. And certainly there are people who are literally just a genius. They walk, a foot off the ground and their brain is in the clouds, and they do brilliant things and they get popularity just because of their brilliance, and they don't want it, right? A lot of times. They'd rather just not deal with all that. But all the rest of us kind of have to work on it a little bit to build a brand and get some attention for ourselves. But again, it's not to get attention for ourselves. And that's one of the points I want to call out through this talk, is it's not just about me. It's about, okay, so it is my personal reputation. A lot of people get when they work with me, but now I scale that online, and it's really, why do I do that? Because I can help more people if I can get my content to more people. So it's not about getting attention for myself. It's about taking things that I've been able to do that helped other people and helping more people with that same thing. It's economy of scale, leveraging being able to help one person, now being able to help 100 people or 1,000 people instead of just one person. So I want to talk about personal brand as art here. Think about your mission, your message, your media, and some mentoring tips as we go along. So number one, what's your mission? Why build a personal brand? My personal brand mission has always been just to help other people, and securing my career has just been a byproduct of that. So I generally just want to help other people. And I found a few tips online and started trying this. And before, I didn't even set out to build a personal brand. I just wanted to help people. I was a field engineer for Microsoft doing Active Directory engagements, doing these health and security assessments for Active Directory, for traveling all over the United States. And I'd get to the delivery report at the end of the engagement and says, here's all your issues. Good luck. And come back next year and hope it's better. I was like, this can't be our story. So I started writing PowerShell scripts to help people fix their AD stuff, whether it's group policy or permissions or forensics or you name it. And so I just started blogging about this stuff, and it just kind of took off. And so we'll talk about why that worked here in a few minutes. So it's really about helping people. So why are we here in this user group meeting? Is we want to learn, and we want to, but then it comes, well, who do we learn from? And you can build your brand by being that person that other people learn from, even if you're just getting started. And this is a point I always make, because there's always new people getting started in the field every day. And regardless of where you are in your journey, in your career, if you're just getting started, somebody once said it, you learn best from somebody a few steps ahead of you, who's just gone through what you're trying to learn. Right? And you want to have mentors of all levels, but there's a place for people who are just a few steps ahead of you, and you can be that person even helping the other person just getting started in the industry as well. I mean, we were just talking about AI before we started this meeting. Everybody's learning AI right now. It's a level playing field. And those of us with more years in the field have some context and experience, but we've all got to learn it just the same. So there's a room for everybody to be successful here. So think about when you go to the conferences, whether it's the InfoSec conference or the CSA conference or the ISSA, wherever you're at. Who do you go to see when you go to a conference? You probably look for topics typically, but sometimes I'm looking for the speaker. I really don't care what they're speaking about. It's just the caliber of the speaker, right? That's why they have some of the keynote people sometimes to kind of draw a crowd. But I look for, who do I recognize? What's their specialty? Maybe there's somebody that I followed online that they've helped me and I want to meet them. And then so you can build a bridge, and some people are a little more tactical about it. It's like, okay, I want to meet this famous person in the field. So who do they know and how can I meet them? And kind of doing the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. I've never really played that game, but the point here is this. When you go to a conference, you think about these people that you really want to see at the conference. What did they do that you can imitate? How did they help you? So how can you be that person that helped other people to put yourself in that same position? So, and again, not to bloat your ego, but because it gives you a platform to help more people. That's what the name of the game is for me anyway. Obviously, Dave Kennedy is a big name in our region here. Matt Shearer as well. I got to meet Dave at the ISS in Cleveland last year, finally. And then Matt, I've gotten to meet several times. We have hung out on more than one occasion. So message. So from what's my mission? I want to help people. What's my message? Okay. If you don't remember anything else I say tonight, remember this one slide. It's very simple, 3 steps, okay? How do I build a personal brand? I'm going to help people. Then I'm going to write it down, record it in some way, and then I'm going to put it somewhere people can find it. And I'm just going to repeat that loop. Whether that's a blog or GitHub or YouTube, Discord, Stack Exchange, Stack Overflow, Reddit, you name it. Find a place where you can kind of camp out and post your stuff. And then go help people. And then obviously you're not going to share names and stuff like that. But you can take your findings and what helped and what worked. And then you can put it where people can find it. Again, put it in one place. Do that consistently. And you will build a personal brand. And this is what I stumbled onto for my own self when I was at Microsoft. Was I committed to once a month. I spent hours and hours in my lab working out scenarios and proving out idiosyncrasies of particular configurations that were nuanced, and helping people. And I documented these things. And before I knew it, there were like 50,000 people a month coming to read my stuff, or 50,000 views a month on my blog at the time. So that's what I've. And now what I'm doing is very different. And I'll share what that looks like in a little bit. But I've reinvented my personal brand a few times. But it all comes back to this: helping people, recording it, put it somewhere people can find it. Just repeat that. So, what do I talk about? And this comes down to a couple things, because I've given this talk several times, and in one audience, somebody said, I'm an introvert. Maybe I'm on the spectrum. I chose IT because I don't want to talk to people. I just want to be behind the keyboard, right? And that's perfectly fine too. Yeah, you could lurk in the forums online, posting whatever. You don't have to be a YouTuber or a stage speaker. There are lots of ways to build a brand, a following, you can even create a paid newsletter on Substack. There's lots of ways you can do it where you never have to go face to face with people. So, but if you like face to face stuff, you can do that as well. So you're going to find a niche. I'm going to explain what that means. You can become a problem solver, looking at real world needs. Just go look at what people complain about on Reddit and start writing solutions for them, You can go after the frequently asked questions view. When I was in the field for Microsoft, I start to hear people ask the same thing. I go to another town, to another IT department, hear the same questions. I'm like, okay, I've heard this question 3 times. Why don't I just write a blog post about it? I'll send them to the blog post. And sure enough, now when I go to answer the question, here's a link. And that got to be a really successful way, to the point where one day I turn up on site and somebody had printed out in a notebook all 10 blog posts in my series on this particular topic, and that was their project guide that they were working from. So you can build that, again, just over time, repeating it. And so that research that you've done on your own. So what is a niche? A niche is an intersection of two specialties. So this is cloud security we're talking about, right? So think about all the different facets of cloud security. That's not what I do. Back in the day, it was Active Directory and PowerShell. It was PowerShell security. So I was kind of a PowerShell guy. And a lot of people knew PowerShell better than I did. A lot of people knew Active Directory better than I did. But Active Directory PowerShell, that was my niche. I owned that spot. And so people would come to me for answers in that place, and that's where I built my brand. So think about, for example, with cloud security, maybe you're like a multi-cloud security governance in the medical field. See how that works? You've got multiple specialties kind of intersecting. It's going to be applied to the medical vertical, medical, manufacturing, finance, take your pick, whatever your vertical is. And then you're going to talk about, let's say, multi-cloud, not just one single cloud, but multi-cloud. And then on top of that, talk about governance, which we're going to talk about dirty jobs in a second. I mean, you mentioned governance and people run. So, but if you can tackle the hard things and become the expert in that, people will come to you for answers. And so you can be able to help more people that way. So the old micro dirty jobs things, right? Doing hard things. So think of the technology challenge that people dread the most in your field. PKI. When it comes to encryption algorithms, like that's not me, right? I'm gonna go find somebody for that, right? Think about in the cloud security space, what's public and insecure, right? Your storage buckets, the classic scenarios, your API calls that are insecure. I just saw somebody had all their APIs dumped to the web recently and documented for them by somebody else. Hunting shadow IT in the cloud. Again, compliance, anything compliance and governance, people hate that and run from it. Secure configuration auditing across multi-cloud deployments. I mean, these are some really challenging things. And I'm sure you guys can come up with a lot better list than I can. But think about what are the hardest parts of your job that nobody wants to do. And then if you go after that and really master it, you talk about job security and building your brand as the problem solver, the person with the answers in that space. That's one strategy for how you can do it. So let's talk about media then. So every artist works in a different type of media, whether it's if it's like a painter, right? So maybe it's oils or pastels or watercolors, whatever. So what is your palette going to look like? So let's take a pause here. I want to see in the chat from you all what are your answers to these questions. I want to move my window out of the way here. So in the chat, do you use social media for work? If so, what platforms? Where are you going for answers commonly? Who are some of the content creators that you follow or particular topics? All right. I'll give you a few minutes to put some things in the chat there, because these are examples of ourselves as technical leaders going to find answers from other people who have posted the help that we're looking for. Again, this is something that's worth imitating. And when we find out, okay, it's kind of a moving target some days with social media platforms. Twitter was going like gangbusters until a few years ago, and now it's not entirely dead for technology stuff, but there's still a little bit going on there. But a lot of people have moved over to a couple other different platforms, right? LinkedIn is still always going to be there. I use a lot of LinkedIn. I see Twitter, LinkedIn there. Yep. So we got some gamers. Okay. Yeah. History. If I'm going to become a professional. Yeah. Okay. All right. Good deal. Well, keep typing those in. I do a lot of LinkedIn myself more than anything these days. Um, and I've started using Reddit for everything anymore. Like, I mean, there's a Reddit for any kind of bizarre, obscure topic you want to imagine. And so I spend a lot of time on Reddit these days, more for personal topics, fitness or gadgets or things I'm researching, But John Saville, yeah, there's a household name. Yeah. Linus Tips. Yeah. So let's talk about where to make your mark. Okay, that other slide of those 3 steps. Remember, help somebody, write it down, put it where somewhere people can find it. Okay, this is where you're going to do that. So let's talk through these. Here's some of your options. In person, right? Think of all the different ways you can do in-person work. This is a user group meeting. You've got conferences. A lot of these local conferences are, begging for people to come speak. To volunteer, you can work the registration table even if you don't want to be a speaker, right? Then be a volunteer. You can mentor people just one-on-one if you don't like large groups. You can do training. Being a trainer is a great way because in order to master something, you really need to learn it in order to teach it, right? And written format. Oh my goodness, there's so many different places. I always tell people don't write a book. Um, books are not for money. It's just for your name, and it's gonna take so much of your soul to write a book. I've got several peers that have written books. If books are your thing, go for it. But the problem with technology books is usually it's a flash in a pan. The technology is only there for a couple of years and then it's gone and kind of irrelevant unless it's some really timeless topics, soft skills usually. But blogs, social media, code sharing, i.e. GitHub, right? GitHub is actually a written format. Audio, podcasts have really made a comeback, it seems like, in the last few years. Podcasts were a thing, and then they kind of tailed off a little bit when video came on, but now podcasts have came back with a vengeance. So lots of things there. Video, obviously, YouTube, lots of other webinars and features there. And then think about, so here's one decision you need to make. Do you want to do this if your manager would allow you maybe an hour or 2 a week or a month that say, hey, we're doing some amazing work. Some employers are open to it. We're doing some amazing work here that I think could help a lot of other people in the industry. And maybe, if you're going to actually build a blog and routinely contribute to that, say, ask permission. Can I share some things that we've worked on here completely anonymously? But, can we do that? And so that's one angle. The other angle is to do it on your personal time as a moonlighting thing, where then you're able to monetize it because it's not under your employer's umbrella. And check out your moonlighting clause with your employer, but you can monetize then. Substack, you can have a monetized newsletter. A lot of people do Patreon. These crowdsourced training sites, clouds, certifications, teaching those classes, people make good money doing that. So there's ways to monetize these things as well. And I know people have built their whole career just on writing articles for all these technical websites that just spew out articles all day long to your inbox, right? You can be one of those people that write those articles. So you think about in-person, written, audio, video, all these different formats, one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-many, different ways these platforms work. What I did for mine, my blog when I was at Microsoft became my home base. And then I had conference speaking where I would reference my blog. I had social media, which all redirected back to my blog. GitHub, I would link to GitHub from my blog. And then if you just found me on GitHub, it would have a link back to the blog. It was the home site for everything. Nowadays, it's kind of different. I really do more LinkedIn and YouTube these days, just depending on what you're doing. So pick a few of these. You think about, again, like Bob Ross, right? Happy little tree over here. You got your different colors, your Van Dyke brown, whatever. Pick your favorite colors here on the palette as your artist, and pick what media you want to work in, and then just make your base camp there, and then fan out to some of these other places and get the references, kind of direct to build that branding hub, right? So then how do people find you and recognize you? So a social media handle, mine was goatee PFE. That was a mistake. The goatee is still there, but I'm no longer a Microsoft Premier Field Engineer PFE. It had a nice ring to it for the time, but now I'm stuck with a Twitter handle that doesn't mean a whole lot for my current role. But anyway, you can use websites like NameChecker to pick a unique handle that you can use across all the different social properties, because that's branding consistency. On this platform, I got this name, on that plan, that other name, but that's not going to work. You want to be the same handle, and then you want to create your corporate logo, which is you. And I had a picture from an event years ago. There was somebody doing headshots, and I got my picture taken. And then I went to somebody on Fiverr, Fiverr, and they made the cartoon version. I gave that to another guy several years later that made an 8-bit version. And then lately I got another free headshot at a conference somewhere that I use. And so I've used these different headshots over the years, depending on what I was doing. And I would go on every social media property, wherever it was I was planting my flag. I'd have that same banner image across the top, same headshot image. So then when somebody sees you on Instagram versus YouTube versus LinkedIn, and they start to recognize the same headshot, the same background, and maybe a lot of people are, maybe they don't want to be their face. Okay, well, pick something that's going to be your logo, because that's going to be your brand. Coca-Cola, Nike, people recognize those things, and you create that brand attribution. And I got this advice from somebody else that I'll share with you at the end. And so then you write up your bio, okay, your credentials, and you keep this with a nice mix. 3 main ingredients. When you submit a talk to a conference, write an article, they want to know, who are you? Give me a bio paragraph. So you talk about your professional credentials, a little personal flavor of some kind, a hobby and interest, right? So you sound like somebody who has a life. And then an endorsement. So you have a kudo file, right? Somebody gave me this advice years ago, and now with OneNote, it's even easier to do. Just do a quick screen clip. When somebody gives you an attaboy, a pat on the back, an email says, hey, thank you, something like that. Maybe it's you got to speak at a conference, or you got a comment on a YouTube video that you put out, or a blog post you put out, and it was very positive. You can clip those, put them in a file, and so then when somebody asks for a bio, you can put, readers of Bob's content said that it was really engaging and actually moved the needle for them in their role, something like that, right? So you can let others establish your credibility by quoting what others have said about your work. So mentoring. Social media policy. I'm going to mention a few of these and go deeper on a couple of them. Every company should have a social media policy. For example, when I post on our Reddit, our subreddit that my company has, we have our own little subreddit, and we have this, they call it Flair on Reddit, that says, hey, you're an official Tanium employee. Usually you have to identify yourself, make sure they know what company you represent, if you're working for a company like that, and posting on their behalf. Personally, it shouldn't matter if you're building your own brand, but just be aware of social media policy. A big one that people get in trouble with is taking, your favorite Marvel superhero, Star Wars, whatever, and you put that in your conference decks and your blog posts, and then all of a sudden you get a takedown notice, copyright violation. You get slapped with thousands of dollars of fines if you're not careful. So be really careful when you're sourcing the media that you put in the content that you create. There are sources, a lot of sources online where you can find free or low cost options for that. Decide if you want to monetize it. And then what I want to talk about here, just a practical thing that is, when I saw this hype cycle graph, because I have ADHD, all right, I have a new idea every 5 minutes. And it's really, I got just tired of chasing new ideas all the time. And then this really helped me, okay? This is from Wikipedia. If you look up the hype cycle on Wikipedia, you'll see there's this, whoops, hold on. There we go. So you got this trigger down here, this brilliant idea, some technology thing, right? You got the peak of inflated expectation. Oh man, it's going to be great. I'm going to start a YouTube channel and people are just, I'm going to be Mr. Beast. I'm going to have 1 million views my first month, right? And then you put out your first video and after fighting with video editing software for 4 weeks straight, you finally get your first video out there and you get 5 views in the first week. And that's called the trough of disillusionment. And you're like, oh, wait, there's really work to this. This is not easy. This really is hard. And then you climb on your elbows and knees up what's called the slope of enlightenment. Trial and error, fixing, learning, studying, putting in the hours, the time until you get to the plateau of productivity. And if you think about starting out in your career, wherever it was you started, most of us on this call probably didn't start in cloud security. You probably started somewhere else in IT and fell into cloud security, and it kind of worked for us. So think about when you're learning, whatever that technology slope was. It's like, hey, Azure, AWS, pick your poison, Google Cloud, whatever. Hey, let's go build out this thing over here. It'll be great. It's all in the cloud. They make it easy for you. Well, right. You get in the trough of disillusionment. You're like, oh, wait, there's more to this because they don't do it the same way the other guy did. And come on, it's cloud storage. You got to be kidding me. They're going to make it this hard, right? And then you get your learning, plateau productivity, right? So I started a hobby back in the summer of 2019 of astrophotography. And this was my first picture of the Orion Nebula with a DSLR on a tripod. And then I bought an actual telescope and hooked up my camera to a telescope. And I thought, oh man, wow, that's amazing. And this is all about buying more gear. But the more gear, the more studying, late nights, I mean, every picture I took was I'd lose a night of sleep, right? And this was the last one I did of the Orion Nebula. And the difference is you've got this little dusty, stuff going on in there. And this is called the Running Man Nebula right there. And it's just like ridiculous stuff that this is out there free for the taking with your camera and a telescope. But it takes a lot of effort going up that slope of enlightenment. Oh, wouldn't it be cool to take pictures like that? Then you're like, oh, wait, you got to be kidding me. Like, you got to learn meteorology. And like, how do I know when it's going to be dewy outside tonight and my lens gets all wet and shoots the night? How do I fix that? I mean, there's like one problem after another to get to this level. And there's so many people way past where I went with it. Well, the same thing with my web show. During COVID, 2021, December, I'm sitting at home thinking, I can't go on site to my customers anymore. How am I going to make a difference? And we're always releasing stuff. So I started out with my Mac 720p built-in webcam and this little Jabra speaker puck, and the audio and video wasn't that great. And then this looks kind of weird. It's really pink. I got this mic, and that made the audio better. Still needed to work on my video, and now got a pretty crisp thing going for the video quality. I got a different webcam, real nice Logitech Brio, and does HD, and got the crisp audio. So now I can actually crank out a pretty decent product with my web show on YouTube, and you just turn that crank. That's that plateau of productivity. And that's what people see, and they think, man, you make it look easy. But no, it's a whole lot of work. Whatever you're going to do to build a brand, it's going to be hard work. So you have to know that going in. So don't get stuck way back here in this trough of disillusionment, because that's where a lot of blogs die, right? You get 3 videos out there, 3 blog posts, and that's all she wrote. Or you go to somebody's blog and there's a post from like 3 years ago, another one from 10 years ago, and you're like, I'm not going back to that blog. That person's not really committed. That's why I said you gotta make a commitment to be consistent and regular, climb that slope of enlightenment to where you get to that place of productivity. All right. So here are some success factors. You need mentors. Find mentors, people who are doing whatever it is that you want to do. Again, go to those conference speakers and tell them, hey, your stuff helped me. The content you created, it really saved me in my job. And I got a promotion. I had somebody tell me that they got hired at Microsoft because they watched my videos, they learned PowerShell, they got a promotion at their job, and then they went on to work for Microsoft. It was like, wow, I never would have dreamed that I could have had that kind of impact on somebody. But you gotta find mentors who've done what you want to do, and then ask them to teach you how they did it. Join a content creators community. I mean, there are so many people on LinkedIn and YouTube hawking, get 100,000 views in a month, 100,000 followers in a month, that kind of stuff. There's all those people hawking all their techniques out there. And it's not all smoke. There's some of it has some good content to it, and I'll give you a recommendation here in a minute on that. But find those other content creators you can birds of a feather, share ideas with. Again, make it consistent. Journal your ideas and stories, your humor, your analogies. I mean, when I was traveling for Microsoft, I'd pick up these one-liners from people, like this guy says, yeah, the org chart was standing in my cube the other day. It's like, okay, I want to use that line. I use that line all the time. When the 0 day hits and the org chart's standing in your cube, or your systems are down, right? The org chart's standing in your cube. This one user, they complained so much that we sent out a patch and they swore it broke their mouse pad. I mean, they complain about anything. I mean, just like, you just pick up these one-liners, throw them in a file somewhere, and start sprinkling those in your content. Whatever ideas you have, capture those, because I'm at the age where I have this condition called IFS, and it just keeps getting worse. I forget stuff, so I have to write it down, right? And then just practice it. Just do it. Turn that crank. You get your kind of your formula, your content, the way you build it, create it, and it actually does get easier. There's still a lot of work to it, but once you get over those learning curves, that slope of enlightenment, you'll get up there to that plateau productivity. And then lean in on community and social. And I'll give you a resource here to help with that. And again, take the long view. This is not something that's going to happen overnight. There's actually something called a long tail. And I think I might have this on another slide, but basically the long tail says, when I was at Microsoft, I would blog about things because I was on the cutting edge. We're inside the game, and we're blogging about brand new releases and capabilities, but we knew enterprise customers wouldn't adopt that for 3 to 5 years. So 5 years after I read a blog post, somebody's just now finding it for the first time. And that's called the long tail. So if I'm consistently, it's just like investing, I'm consistently putting something out there every month. Over time, the cumulative impact of that grows, because now I've got, say, 24 months of content, and people are finding stuff that I wrote 2 years ago as well as today, and that grows your impact over time. It's a long view. It's not a fast race. So check, just care and feeding. Check your metrics. See what landed, see what didn't. You might be surprised about what sticks. I would put blood, sweat, and tears in the lab into a blog post with screenshots and details and testing. And then I write some goofy little blog post about how to automate installing the Active Directory management tools on your Windows 10 box. It's just one line of code, one script, one line, just to throw it out there as a quickie for a blog post. And who knew it went to the top of the views, right? And here I'm thinking I've solved world peace with this other big, deep, labbed piece, right? But sometimes it's the small things that land. Keep those kudos, like I said earlier, reuse those, answer comments, if you have a blog or YouTube videos, whatever, Stack Exchange, answer those comments and get involved in those conversations. And then you'll see that long tail of accumulated impact. Also, if you believe in your content, don't you want to help more people, right? And this is, again, that weird thing of promoting yourself. It feels awkward, and if you do it right, it shouldn't feel awkward. It's just, hey, I've helped some people, and this might help you, and you put it out there like that, right? Keep it humble. You're not trying to. I have some really embarrassing videos on YouTube. If you go back to the early days when I was doing a lot of conference speaking around PowerShell, I spent the first 5 minutes telling people where to find my blog and all this stuff, and it just makes me sick to look at it now because I was trying to build my brand, but I was doing it the wrong way. I was saying, here's where you go find all my stuff. People weren't at the session to see me; they're there to see the problem we're solving, right? So that's why I didn't open up tonight's session with just here's me and all my credentials. No, I wanted a hook, right? As a speaker, you open up with a hook, or if a writer, right? You hook your audience up front. What's the problem? I can connect with this. Okay, who is this helping me with this problem? They'll ask later. So, funny thing, 3,000 years ago, somebody wrote this book of wisdom that you wouldn't be surprised how relevant it is to what we do today. Um, a reputation. Okay, this all applies to personal brand. A good name is to be chosen rather than great riches and favors, and is better than silver or gold, right? You want a good name. You want a good reputation. Again, that's why people are going to continue to come back to your content. And when they find that you've answered their question, they've done a search 3 different times and your answer keeps coming up, they're going to keep coming back, right? Humility. The reward for humility is fear of the Lord, is riches and honor in life. You want to be humble about what you're doing. Don't get too big for your britches, as they say. Endorsements. Let another praise you. Not your own mouth, a stranger, not your own lips, right? If you're out there tooting your own horn, we've all seen that go wonky, right? Let somebody else establish your credibility, and then be cautious, right? The crucible's for silver and the furnace is for gold, and a man's tested by his praise. And I made so many mistakes when I was starting, painful, embarrassing mistakes, where I was trying to build my brand the wrong way and talking about myself too much. Just don't do that. Just be humble, let other people establish your credibility, and build a reputation of solid content, and you're going to go far when it comes to building your personal brand. So to wrap this up, help people, record it, and put it somewhere others can find it. Now, some resources for you. This book, you can screenshot this if you want. I've got a link to the slides as well. But Michael Hyatt was a former Tyndale CEO, is a big publishing company. Went on to build his own business. It's remarkable, actually. He's down in Nashville. And this book is a little dated, but the concepts are still there. And then Pat Flynn actually went to one of Michael Hyatt's seminars on building your brand. And then he went on to create an even bigger book called Superfans, how to stand out and easy way to stand out and grow your tribe and build a successful business, right? So he's been really successful, built multiple online businesses, YouTube channels, things like that are all very profitable from a personal branding kind of standpoint. It gives you some real tactical advice if you want to do this. Get your avatar, your headshot, your bio, get your common handle. And if you want to do any kind of speaking at all, I can't recommend Toastmasters highly enough. Toastmasters is a public organization globally. It's super cheap dues, and you'll be hanging out with a bunch of positive, motivated people that just want to speak better. And Toastmasters did wonders for my career. Gives you a lot of confidence. And so if you want to really take your game to the next level in anything you do, I really recommend Toastmasters. So here's your call to action. Then get out there on LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever social platform that you use. Sounds like looking at the chat, we got a lot of LinkedIn people here. And so let's continue this conversation. You can connect with me out there if you like. I've offered free coaching in the past if you'd like some help getting started. Pay it forward, right? People pay it forward like the people who helped you, helping others. And pick out what's my mission, what I want to do, what's going to be my niche, how am I going to help people, what media would I prefer to work in. Set a goal to volunteer or speak at a conference. We got plenty of time this year. Fall conference season is coming up. A lot of these events are looking for volunteers. It's a great way to get connected and get involved in your CSA chapter. Lots of opportunities to get involved, and that also contributes to building your brand. So Q&A, I want to kind of run through the chat window here. And also just feel free to take yourself off mute. I got one closing thought after this, but I just want to pause here for some Q&A.
You mentioned Toastmasters, and your presence in the camera is really good. But I was wondering, I put it in chat.
Mm-hmm.
How do you have your camera set up with your screen so that you're 90% of the time looking straight at us? Is that just a thing that you've mentally done to look at your camera, or do you have some other kind of special setup?
It's years of practice. All I do is I actually have my my MacBook here right in front of me, and I've got my slides right in front of me, and my camera, my external webcam, is literally just over the edge of my laptop here. So my laptop is right here, and so my webcam is just above that, and because I've had am I still there? Wait.
Now your video disconnected, your audio is still good.
Oh, shoot. It's never done that. Did it disconnect for some reason? I bet it wiggled the cable when I picked up. There we go. It just wiggled the cable. Sorry about that. Yeah. So, yeah, my camera is right over the top of my laptop. And when I do my web show, I will script my opening remarks. And if you've ever seen somebody on a web camera read from a script and their eyes are down and they're going back and forth across the screen, and you're like, oh, this is so boring. They're reading to me, right? But what I do is I'll take my notes and I will cinch them up on my screen about 2 inches wide directly under my webcam. So my eye line is just dropped slightly. And then over here with my other hand, I'm using my scroll wheel and my mouse to just kind of like a teleprompter, keep it rolled right up under my webcam. So I can actually look about an inch below my webcam. And if you're not paying attention, it still looks like I'm looking right at you.
Yeah,
and I can read off a script right there.
Okay. Instead of using I mean, a lot of content creators do use
teleprompters. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Anybody going to Pi, Ohio?
Where?
Python, the Python conference in Ohio.
Oh, no.
It's happening in Cleveland this year.
Usually
happening in Columbus, but it's happening in Cleveland. Look up Pi, Ohio.
Okay.
It's a conference. Next one I'm going to.
Good deal. Yeah, it's a great opportunity to go meet some of the people that you follow, the content creators that have helped you, and thank them. And
So Ashley, here's a question for you. How do you get past the idea that perhaps what you want to share is not worthy of sharing, or that, how do you build up the confidence to be able to throw content out into the world and, feel like it's meaningful? Because I think that might be I know from myself, that's sort of a hurdle I need to overcome. So.
The first thought that comes to mind is like some type of an online forum where you can post an answer that has that content in it, and you can see the little upvotes. And that'll tell you that, okay, this is not just me in my private world here. There are other people that have the same thing, and this is helpful for them, right? So you can test ideas that way. Maybe that's one way to do it. Pick your forum wherever you want to hang out, wherever maybe there's a special forum that's particular to your skill set, and go there, make friends, and then again, you can build a reputation entirely as the forum answer person that's got all the badges and the flair and got it rated up because they got all the answers, right? Some people have made Microsoft MVP just off answering questions in forums all day long. So lots of different ways you can do that, but that'll give you an idea, some validation that your ideas are actually worth sharing. Or just ask your peers, You know, hey, do
Yeah.
you struggle with it? Go to one of these events, right? You're sitting
Mhm.
in this big conference hall or breakout session. Hey, have you seen this problem too? Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I thought this is the way I fixed it. And they're like, well, yeah, you should write that down and help people put it. And again, the thing is to create, even if you start out with kind of minimal effort, at least try to find some place you can plant your flag, and find your name, your handle that's going to be usable across all the platforms, and get a $5 headshot somewhere, and just kind of get started, just to at least plant your flag, even if you're not going to develop the hill. Just at least plant your flag somewhere so you can start to have that one place that you send people to. GitHub's really easy. You can just create a GitHub and have a README page. Here's all the links. It's so easy to set up, and here's all my code samples or whatever.
Okay.
GitHub's super easy place to get started.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. And people blog on GitHub as well.
I tried to make my own website for a while. I always have, but the problem is I'm quite a private person. And so it's hard to differentiate, like if I'm working on coding problems or if I'm working on my personal life, how to divide that up. Now, you're right. The exponential effect of blogging for years and years, if I would have started when I should have, would have been great. Now I've got to restart my blog, and I'm not employed in the tech sector. So I basically have to start it with content of stuff that I come up with. You say about helping other people, that's great. But I'm not around a lot of people who are tech savvy and have technical problems. So you didn't mention personal websites.
Oh yeah, that's you can use personal websites. That's fine. And again, I keep bringing up the forums. Go find what people are asking for help with, and go, if you're looking for ideas to get started. That's a great way to do it. Yeah. All right. Before we run out of time here, I really appreciate the interaction here. I have one example to share with you, and I shared this. Jim saw this last fall. This was August of last year. I've been out of the PowerShell scene for a while, and new Microsoft employee Miriam Weissner released this 500-page mega book on PowerShell security. I know this is a cloud thing, but pick your flavor, right? And so I just this was on Twitter, and I just gave her a compliment on Twitter. Said, hey, your book, it looks like you've really done some significant work to move the industry forward here. And here was her reply. Thanks for your nice words. I stand on the shoulders of giants. I do not have the greatest reviewers, but the best Posh community to learn from. Not only do I have the greatest reviewers, but the Posh community. And I remember watching tech videos from you before I joined Microsoft years ago, and I thoroughly enjoyed them. And this was like 6 years after I left Microsoft. And it just blew me away that something I did all those years ago helped somebody. She's not from America. She's from another country somewhere in the world. She had read my stuff. It was helpful to her. She found it some way. And again, when your objective is to help people, it's really validating to see, wow, this really did help somebody on the other side of the world that I've never met. And so I want that experience for you all as well. It's really warms your heart to see, wow, something I did help somebody else that I'll never meet. And that's really, really exciting to be able to do that. So for our talk tonight, I've tweaked these slides a little bit from the ISS conference last fall, but you can get a copy of these slides from last fall here at the on GitHub. Under Go TPFE Neo Sec Summit. You can screenshot that if you want, and you'll get a copy of these slides that you can take and study as you implement your own personal branding strategy. So thanks for the invitation to join you all tonight, and I'm happy to hang out for a little while if you want to talk or have any other questions.
Well, thanks for joining us, Ashley. I really appreciate you agreeing to speak to us. And I think this was a great presentation tonight. And really stirred a lot of good discussion and good thoughts here. So anybody else have anything they would like to add or any other questions?
Let me check. Everybody online puts up a now hiring sign. Every hiring manager doesn't even know what they want, it seems. I need a job yesterday. How can I really separate the wheat from the chaff, so to say, when it comes to searching through all the Indeeds and all the Glassdoors and all the online postings, and if they don't know what they're looking for in a candidate? You mentioned the personal brand thing is huge. I'm going to work on that. But how do I know if I should even apply? Because my girlfriend has this one strategy, and that's to just bomb everybody with the application. Just fill them all out, submit as 100 a month. It doesn't work for her, and I don't think it works for anybody else. How can you figure out which companies are worth working for? Of course, yeah, Microsoft, but I discount myself. I wouldn't even know how to start to begin to work for a major company. But how do you just online without knowing anybody, find a good company to work for? It could be cloud security. I'm working on cloud security. I was originally a Linux sysadmin, but like, how do I find a new job, basically?
So I can tell you what worked for me. So I was working at Toyota in Georgetown, Kentucky, where they make all the Camrys here in the United States, and not all of them, most of them. And I was just an IT guy. I had gotten Microsoft certifications, used to teach MCSE classes, A+, all that stuff. And I just got me a job after that and just worked hard and was proud of my work and did good work. And I publicly applied on the Microsoft jobs website. Just went to their careers page and blindly applied, no references, and every now and then a blind squirrel finds a nut. Made it through, got hired. So there's that path, which I think has got some divine intervention somewhere in there as well. Just God's good graces actually made it in the door. But beyond that, you say you don't know anybody. Leverage your professional network. Lean in on LinkedIn. And you may consider buying a professional subscription to LinkedIn, which will give your profile more visibility in search results. You've got your flag up, but then get your peers to write some reviews for you or feedback on LinkedIn that kind of be out there. Some work samples, some web, there's some project type sections on LinkedIn. You can put links of things you've done online, your repo or your blog or whatever, and make sure you've got something worth looking at there. Get some peers maybe to help you with that as well. Again, Toastmasters, and just look for ways to going to user groups like this, meeting people, adding them. Every time you go to a conference, you should walk away with 10 or 20 new LinkedIn connections at a minimum, right?
Or 10 or
just
20 new t-shirts.
Yeah. I've got a drawer full of those too. Those didn't get me any jobs though, but right. Everybody that you sit in their session, you watch them speak, go send them a LinkedIn request and say, hey, I really enjoyed your session, in the little note when you go send that connection to them. And tell them what you liked about their session specifically, not just, hey, it was great, but tell them specifically what helped you in that session. And now all of a sudden you're adding, 10 conference speakers to your network who have connections to the companies that are movers and shakers that can help extend your reach. And also you can begin to make meaningful contributions on LinkedIn. Share an article of something that's impactful in your segment, and not just say, hey, I found this great read, check out this article, but provide a paragraph of thoughtful reflection, and perhaps where you see that intersecting what you do and how it's impacted what you've seen. And that'll begin to create meaningful content when they look at how many people do you find on LinkedIn and it's pretty sparse? bare minimum details filled in. They've got a wedding picture for their headshot, right, with a tuxedo. That's not what you put on LinkedIn, people. All right, go get your friend with a DSLR camera at least, or somebody to just take your picture and make it anything but a wedding picture. All right.
I'm a moderator of a couple of Facebook groups, and if the only thing you have on your public profile is a wedding picture, it's a red flag for a scammed account.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, there's lots of things you can do. If you don't have the momentum of content, you just have to start building the flywheel before you can start turning it. So start building the teeth and the gears on that flywheel. You're building your network, your connection, going to events. We've got a thriving region here with lots of regional IT events.
Columbus is still doing good on hiring?
Oh yeah. Well, I can't tell you anywhere that's doing good on hiring. I'm not in the market to be hired, but Columbus is booming right now.
It's hilarious
it really
that
is.
you brought Flywheel. When I was in 2007, me and a couple of tech guys, we tried to start a tech collective called Flywheel.
Oh.
So it's really funny that you brought that up.
Yeah.
It didn't go far. We made a couple of Drupal 6 and 7 websites, and then everybody kind of just dropped out.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, there's so much. If you go to meetup.com, go to eventbrite.com, look for regional meetings in your topical area of expertise, or the area of expertise that you want to grow in, and go meet those people, go show up at those user groups, put in the miles, put in the FaceTime, begin to build those relationships. You're going to run into people who are looking for good people, because slackers typically don't show up at user groups asking hard questions. Usually those are the people who are moving in the industry in their region, and so those are people that want to get hired. That hirers are looking to hire, right? People who are leading and making an impact. Yeah.
You had mentioned something about picking a company too, and there are a few podcasts out there where they interview people from different places. So like Darknet Diaries comes to mind, where if you're listening to somebody and they're describing the work they do in the company they work for, that's one of the places that I have found useful as far as figuring out, a good company or a company that I would be interested in, pursuing. So that was just a thought that came to mind based on what your question was. So.
Yeah. It's a good way to do it. There's plenty of those podcasts out there in the security space that you can, number one, just follow you're listening to some guest speaker on a podcast.
Good security podcast, because I'm about to go to work in an hour, and I do boring work at the airport, not tech related, but I like to listen to podcasts while I'm working. I've got a couple of them, like Cyber, podcast, Reisinger. Everybody knows Reisinger. But
There are so many. Let's see. Let me look at my podcast library here.
Cyberwire is pretty good.
Let's see, the SANS Daily Stormcast. That's like 5-minute clips from the top news of the day in cyber. Let's see.
Yeah.
Defensive Security Podcast.
My favorite is Darknet Diaries. I love that one.
Oh yeah, he's always great.
Yeah,
it's like having Frack narrated to you.
Cybersecurity interviews. Here's a Python podcast. I mean, you just put in the topic and look for the most views on your whatever podcast tool of choice that you use. I've got so many different ones over the years here from so many different areas.
Yeah, I don't do any proprietary software, so I just use an open source RSS.
Oh, one thing that I coach some folks, and one that I mention frequently is I just my inbox is like a disaster zone. I
Who's it?
subscribe to every newsletter you can imagine for security. There are so many different really good security newsletters out there that will aggregate what you need to be aware of in your segment, in your specialty. So just go out there and just start finding them, and then those newsletters will send you articles, and then you go click the article and you find those sources and subscribe to them, and before you know it, you've built a pretty good net of catching and staying up to date on what's the latest and greatest in your space. I remember years ago when I was starting out in my career, my 20s, and hearing back in those days, they had these things called newspapers, and there were managers who would sit there and read the newspaper in the morning, getting paid to read the newspaper. I'm thinking, are you kidding me? What are you doing? You know, I'm getting
What am I?
stuff done over here.
Yeah.
And now I'm the old fart reading newsletters every morning when I open my inbox, because I'm trying to stay aware of what's going on in the industry and up to date on the latest and greatest threats and the latest and greatest innovations. So there's something to be said for being aware of what's happening around you in the industry.
It's important.
Yeah, because then you're conversational, right? If you can at least know the headline and the blurb, that at least gets you somewhere in the conversation. And
Right. You mentioned
and
the
you got to make
API leak.
connections.
That was that stupid little
Mhm.
R1 box. Yeah. Who would have bought that? A silly little thing. I didn't. I don't think I have any last questions for you, but it's been a great presentation, I have to say.
Well,
I
thanks.
really
I'm
enjoyed
glad
it.
it was helpful. Yeah.
Yeah,
Anything particular? So this is the part I would like to ask at the end, as well as we're all done. So what particularly was helpful for you? Because that helps me know what I said to make sure I say again next time, right? Was there anything particular today that was most helpful for you?
Helping other people and then making notes about it. And you know, documentation, you've probably been a software developer of one sort or another. Documentation is our nightmare.
Yeah.
Some people like it, but I hate it. And documenting the things that you do properly and then putting it out there for other people to know, especially so you don't have to repeat yourself. That was great. And the stuff on humility and ego, excellent. I loved how you quoted Proverbs. That was great too. But yeah, the documentation and keeping regular documentation about things and putting it online. And yeah,
Here's a little
it,
secret. I wrote it down so I would remember it. It was the third Indiana Jones movie, and his dad, Sean Connery, has got this notebook. He's written all of his findings down in there, and he's like, "Where you you know this? No, that's why I wrote it down, because I couldn't remember it. I wrote it all in the journal. Where's the journal?" You know,
well,
right?
yeah. Ever since I met my last girlfriend, she's pregnant now, half away with her pregnancy, and that actually inspired me to make a personal journal of everything, so that I would know, like, this happened this day, and then she'll ask me, like, what did we do then at this time, watched this movie and went out here. That's like a personal journal, of course. I
Mm-hmm.
never did that before I met her, though.
Well, professionally, it's very helpful.
Professionally, I should do it more
Mm-hmm.
and
Your
do
slide,
dirty things that nobody else likes. Do the stuff that nobody else wants to do. That'll keep your job security.
Yep.
your slides about where to make the mark, for example, like the different suggestions you gave there, along with the brand identity and logo, I thought were really helpful. That was, um, I remember you discussing that last year in your talk, but I hadn't, it kind of sparked that memory for me. So I thought those were really impactful. So
It's a big choose your own adventure. Whatever you want to do, whatever makes you happy, just go write it down and share it with others. Yep. All right.
hey, Well, I think that'll do it. Ashley, thanks again. This has been great. This is one of the best meetings I have attended this year, to be honest with you. So I appreciate you taking the time and staying after to talk more. So
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, it's always fun to hang out with like-minded people.
mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure we'll see each other somewhere at a conference in Ohio.
Yeah, I'll look for
If
you out
not
at Black
at the
Hat.
Black Hat. Yeah. Of
Yeah,
all the thousands of people, I'm sure we'll run into each other out there, right?
yeah.
Yep.
Well, and Matt
I'll
Brewer
be at
said
the
you'd be
Tanium
out there
booth if you
too.
want to find me. So,
Okay,
yeah.
sounds good. All right. Well,
All right.
Sean,
Thanks a lot,
nice
Ashley.
meeting you too.
All right.
Jim,
Take
nice to
care.
meet you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
See y'all.
Thanks a lot. Great meeting.